Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, there's a difference in between talking about wanting to do a one-person or a one-woman show or a one-man show, and then going out and actually doing it. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram at where else? At In the Seats. For all sorts of fun updates from the world of film, television, everything else in between. But if you really want to go to the source of it all, and I say this a lot because it's important, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us the kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got an interesting one. We're diving into a little bit of indie film. It is on VOD now. It is a horror thriller. It is called Faye. And it's the story of Faye L. Ryan, who is a successful personal growth author who is mourning the loss of her husband. She retreats to a cabin on the bayou to finish her next book, only to find out that there's more than the past that's actually haunting her. This is from writer-director Kd Amond and from star and co-writer Sarah Zanotti, and we had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with them both about just sort of their inspiration to do this project and sort of the tropes they're in and sort of why getting to do this inside of a horror genre really opens up some doors and makes for an interesting film. We had a great talk with them, but check out before you check out our talk with them, like I always say, check out Faye, which is on video on demand platforms now. But enjoy our talk with Kd and Sarah because it's a good one.
Now, I mean, obviously, first off, I mean, congratulations on the movie. I really enjoyed it. I got a real kick out of it, just conceptually and just sort of the journey that we go on. Like, I'm kind of curious on your end, walk me through not just of the story, but wanting to tell it in this particular way.
So the essence of Faye is all about, processing through emotion and loss and grief. And, that is often a solo job, even though, therapy, great tool. But, sometimes the biggest monsters in our lives are our emotions and our feelings and having to deal with the circumstances that sometimes life gives us, and in Faye's case, she's just lost the love of her life. And, going through grief, you can lean on people's shoulders, but really it's you and you at the end of the day.
You got to process.
Yeah. And so I think making a one woman movie just kind of fit the energy of that really well. And also it was lockdown. And so, having one location, one actor and 4 people on the crew was
convenient. Sarah had wanted to make a movie where she was the only person in it. And I was like, okay, cool. And you had the opening scene in your head where Faye just gets in the car and is talking and saying, I'm supposed to stop talking to you. And then you see there's no one there. And I was like, okay, cool. We can go with that. And then we started writing. And I think in the middle of the night, I probably sent a 2 a.m. text message that was like,
5 stages of grief.
This movie's going to be in chapters. She's a writer, and so then the little monologues that are cut up in between it kind of became a framing structure, almost like a solo Greek chorus. You know?
No, I mean, I'm curious because obviously you both developed the script. Like, was there any room to sort of play with it in the moment, or was it something you guys sort of had the words down like right away before you went to shoot?
We wrote Faye. I think we wrote the whole script, but then we would write like insert black box monologue,
Right.
because we knew we were going to do those. But we wrote those later. They weren't like a piece of the original script.
Yeah.
Some of them are true. And, so we knew that was going to be a framing device, an editing device, and something that we would know more. I'm losing words. We would know how to incorporate those more after we shot the terror.
Yeah. But in the moment, I mean, because it was such a small production, there were only 5 of us in the room, and both writers were present. I definitely got to play a lot in the moment. And if something wasn't working, it was like, okay, let's shift. Let's see what will work.
Yeah.
How important was it for you both to sort of, I mean, because obviously the film plays with grief, and it plays with sort of the terror within when you're processing through all these emotions. How important was it for you guys to have these moments where we do externalize the terror? Like, we have the moments with the blood coming out of your eyes, and we have these little flashes, like, rather than hitting us over the head with it. I love that it was done sort of in flashes and even subtly, and allowed to play more sort of by the actor, as opposed to sort of hitting us over the head with any kind of blood or guts or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. What's the question again?
Well, just in terms of how important was it for you to sort of have the horror be psychological as opposed to literal?
Yeah, I think we're very into the more cerebral part of the genre. And Sarah, she's such a great actor. It's just, as a director, I just want to let her go. Like, she can communicate so much with just a look, and it's like, I think there's a place for like gore and splatter films. I'm a big fan, don't get me wrong, but this movie in particular, we had like an actual message in it that we wanted to get across. And so I think that it was important for us not to be overly exploitive in the sense of like the genre when it becomes like a splatter picture, or a slasher or something like that.
We only had so much fake blood. So.
Yeah, we only had like a gallon left, honestly.
Well, and I did love the cutaways as well, just especially referencing Halloween and other things like that. I'm kind of curious, before going in, were you sort of drawing influence from any kind of films, or were you trying to sort of stay away from the genre altogether?
We had both of us had only ever seen movies with one male actor, and so we had like a couple of references of movies just in terms of like making a movie with one person, but in terms of like how it was gonna all go together. We Bronson, if you've ever seen that with Tom Hardy. And he's got, the moments where he's kind of performing in front of a red curtain, like for a stage of people. I think we drew from that a little bit for the black box monologues. But there weren't too many things that we could really reference. We were just sort of
Bronson, I'd say, would be our biggest influence.
Yeah.
Structurally.
For sure. Yeah, no, I definitely see that. Absolutely. Now, I mean, I'm curious, like, as a co-writer and and the star, is it like, how much weight is on you to sort of like, I guess, carry the frame, to carry the moment? Because I mean, a lot, especially with a lot of these monologues, a lot of these shots, you're not breaking away. Like, the camera's holding on you quite a bit. Like, is it fun? Is it exhilarating? Is it terrifying? Just to sort of have those moments where like they're not breaking away.
It's the best. Because, it's interesting. I think at a certain point, the camera became almost my other actor. And Kd behind it too. There were just so much, there's this one take that's a 10-minute one take. And it felt like Kd and I were just doing this dance. Like, I could just feel her moving around me in a certain way. And it didn't feel like I was alone. I mean, it was also super tight quarters, and there were 5 of us in the room at all times. So it felt like I had stuff to play off of. Also, the character of Jacob, we joke about this. I act by myself all the time. Like, I say monologues to myself in the mirror at nighttime. I just make them up. Like, I'm always acting with the air. And so in a weird way, that just felt like normal to me. But also I just had so much trust in Kd and, the other 3 people who made this movie with us, Sarah Delahaya, Nicole Lim, and Chris Martin, and the lead singer of Coldplay. Just
he gets it all the time.
But I had so much trust in them. I never felt alone. I never felt like I was carrying some huge burden. It weirdly felt very natural.
Well, and I mean, I that dovetails into something I'd love to ask you, Kd, just because, I mean, some of those shots were fantastic. And I mean, especially choreographing all the movement inside of a close quarter. Like, how much was it was it finding in the space, or just sort of really being able to dance around and sort of know that this is going to be my 10-minute 2-step to sort of get this shot kind of thing?
Some of those shots were like, they're so special. It's still like such a great memory for me because it wasn't specifically choreographed. I didn't necessarily want to, because like I wanted to be with Faye and to follow her. And then the only thing I think I would say to you is, I'm going to lead you this way. I'm going to follow you over here. I'm going to lead you back over here. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then we just went. And I think we only did that tape like 4 times.
Yeah. A lot of it felt very intuitive.
Very.
And Kd and I, we just have a weird little, like, I don't even know what it is. It's telepathy.
It's telepathy. The quickest way to develop trust with your actors, put them in whiteout contact. Put them on a loop, that's what Kd does. She just blind them.
She just tugs me around. I'm kidding.
That's how to develop trust really quickly.
It really feels in watching this that, I mean, because obviously, especially in horror, we know of the trope of the final girl, but I mean, really, Faye is the only girl. And I mean, I kind of love that. And it definitely feels like there's room to evolve, sort of, especially in the genre of horror, to sort of tell these very individual and solo stories. And I'm kind of curious, for both of you, how important was it to not just tell a sort of a female-driven story, but a solo story?
Yeah. I mean, Sarah wanted to do the movie where it was just her, and then but in my head I'm going, that's cool. That's never been done with a woman.
Yeah.
We've got Buried and Phone Booth and movies with Tom Hardy in the car, which I could watch all day. Locke. I love Locke. Yeah. And I was like, we could do the female version of that. Yeah, let's do it. Like, for me, I was just like, it's a risk, obviously, but again, we had nothing to lose, and we had just met, honestly. Sarah and I have been friends and collaborators for 3 months.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
When we made Faye.
That's fantastic.
And it was all new, and everything was like falling into place so quickly, especially we were working on another film at the same time, and everything was just going so smoothly. I was like, yeah, of course, let's just do this.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a conscious thought at the time, but maybe I just like to think that it was. But it's like, yes, we wanted to make a story about this solo mission, but what the movie really does for me is show that, like, what we experience at, solo is universal. Everybody deals with grief and loss. And so in a way, it kind of felt like we were making something that was for everyone.
Yeah, the theme was
everyone.
Yeah, the theme was definitely universal.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that, because I mean, like you said, it is one of those things you do have to go through alone. But those emotions of fear and grief and being scared are often ones that you experience. Like, you feel alone when you experience them. But I mean, again, I think this goes back to the idea of just working in sort of a thriller horror genre in general. Because I mean, if you had tried to do Faye as a drama or as a rom-com, it's not going to work. But it has to be sort of this genre. What is it about sort of the genre itself that you think that allows for so much freedom?
I mean, horror is, I feel like you don't have any sort of restrictions.
Yeah.
I mean, we really like to play with mixing genres, but I don't know. What would you say? Because we're both huge fans of horror.
Huge fans of horror, and there's so many subgenres of horror, and it's all so specific. there's a freedom in there. Like, I think in one of the things that are a constant feedback that we get on scripts and stuff is that they don't know what genre to put us in, but it's always kind of dark. So I'm like, well, then that's horror. Like, psychological thriller is a horror. You can have comedy and horror. And it's, we've said this in other interviews. Horror is just really important because it provides a safe space for you to explore the darkest sides of humanity.
For sure.
And so I think there was no question about, we knew we were going into that genre for sure. Because there's a certain amount of freedom in it too.
Now, I mean, just to start putting a bow on this, I mean, this delves into sort of the silly section of things that I like to ask, but I always like to ask people sort of what their influences were when they were young and what got them into the business. Because, I mean, we're in a rarefied world where you tend to be a fan first before you get into the business. Like, what were the movies or maybe the performances or the moments that you both saw when you were younger that sort of had the light bulb go off for you and made you go, I want to get into this business?
Well, in terms of horror films, I know both of us, in both of our top fives, The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that definitely was something that influenced both of us growing up. The Black Box monologue about Halloween is slightly based off of a true story for me. That was the first horror film that I ever saw.
Oh, wow.
And it terrified me. I snuck downstairs and watched it with my older brother and his friend when I was 9. And I was traumatized, but I think it also kind of just planted the seed of like, whoa, you can like, when you watch a movie, people feel intense. It can stick with them, stay with them. And that movie definitely had a huge impression on me when I was a kid. So many actors, so many movies, not just horror. I'm trying to think of
for me, the first movie I saw that made me want to make movies was Trainspotting.
Nice. Okay.
I think I was like too young. I was like 11 when I saw Trainspotting. When Ewan McGregor like dives into that toilet, I was just like, you do anything. And I think we're both very much into more character-driven movies. I would rather watch a small character piece than I would like a big Marvel movie. Nothing against Marvel.
No, of
it's
course.
Just, it's just that I find human beings interesting enough without having to step into too much fantasy. Again, if there's anything wrong with that, but I loved the independent film movement of like the 90s and early 2000s. Like I watched a lot of like the Ice Storm and Wonder Boys and all of Wes Anderson's early stuff,
Nice. Okay.
Tarantino's early stuff. Those are the movies that made me want to make movies. And then horror was always like what I would watch during AMC's like Screenfest, like, all the time. So I loved Halloween. I loved Psycho. I loved Poltergeist. I loved The Exorcist. The Exorcist terrified me as I was a kid growing up, but now it's something I watch once a year, and probably seeing all the documentaries on it. I really admire William Friedkin's process as well.
Yeah, super interesting. And then this wasn't more so when I was a kid, but both of us really got into the Duplass brothers.
Oh, yeah.
That was a huge influence for just being able to pick up our phones and go make something.
Yeah. You could say Creep maybe influenced.
Yeah, Creep
influeed Faye.
No, that's a good example. Yeah. Sure. No, but I mean, I love that because I think this is definitely an example of that because at least I feel as hard as it is to get attention just in the world of all the streamers and all the content that's out there, it feels like there is a certain degree of freedom that if you've got an idea and you got a story, pick up a camera and go do it. Most of us are carrying a half decent camera in all of our pockets half the time anyway. You know what I mean? So as Faye gets out there into the world and people maybe have those ideas, like what would you want to say to them about sort of telling their own stories?
I think story comes first. Make sure you write a script that's interesting and actors who can carry it. Because people will forgive a lot of there are iPhone technicality issues.
Of course, right. Yeah.
You might lose focus here and there because you can't really pull it while you're filming. But if it's a gritty little independent film, people will forgive that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You've got to have solid actors. You've got to have good sound. And you've got to just have the stamina to do it, you know?
And I think when it comes to like writing, you know, your own story, somebody said this to me once, and it's always stuck with me, that perfection is the antithesis of being done. And I think, you know, I respect anybody's process, and people, you know, if they're following their own true north, then, you know, whatever your process looks like, whether it's you write something in a couple of months or it takes you 10 years, you know, that's all important and great. But for me and for us, we've realized that we don't want to sit on something forever.
Yeah.
And we could spend years and years perfecting scripts or movies, but at the end of the day, the really exciting part for us is the magic of the moment when you're making it. And sometimes something that you don't think is that perfect going into the process, you kind of like, it just becomes its own thing. It becomes perfectly imperfect while you're making it, and that you can learn so much in creating. And I do think there's an energy that sometimes gets lost when we spend so long trying to make sure that it's airtight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, our lives aren't airtight.
Exactly.
And so if you're making a movie about your story, like, you know, it could be a little rough around the edges.
That's the Duplass brothers say 80%.
Yeah. We always look at each other. We're like, does this completely make sense? And then 80%.
80%.
You know, leaving a little space in there for just for whatever to surprise you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love
do
that.
it. Make it.
Yeah.
Make the movie.
The stamina to do it.
Also,
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I want to get a tattoo now of the only girl.
You should.
The only girl. I'm like, I'm the only girl.
But you know what? Thank you both for not just the time, but having the stamina to do this, because I mean, it's really a fascinating piece that I absolutely enjoyed. And I mean, I can't wait for more people to see it and just keep doing the good work. And thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for having us.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.